think the best thing that we have ever enjoyed since we entered into development work is the coming of ACT.
You cannot go and ask the government to be accountable when you yourself you are not.
ACT came with a mentality that was not there before. Coaching mentality, mentoring mentality.
It was no more about table desktop operations. It's now into the field and getting more impact and getting more people's life transformed.
The gain of this EU intervention on my organization is enormous that I can't begin to enumerate one by one.
Well, whether or not there is an EU ACT program too, I can say very clearly that the European Union would continue to support the civil society sector.
Civil society organizations play a fundamental role in the development of Nigeria. Despite their challenges, CSO still maintain their role as the conscience of the nation. However, CSO advocacy is only as effective as space allowed by the government, the resources from the funder, and their own internal capacity.
ACT is actually agent for citizens-driven transformation. It is the EU flagship program that looks to support strengthening of civil society organizations' capacity to become more credible, to become more effective, efficient in what they do, so they can contribute effectively to sustainable development in Nigeria. That is the overall goal.
Development assistance is one of the key priorities of the European Union. In addition to our support to government, it's also important that we support the civil society sector. Civil society sector has been growing geometrically since 1999, when Nigeria returned to democracy. One thing that characterizes the civil society sector in Nigeria is the passion with which civil society actors have, and also the contribution civil society has made to development and governance in Nigeria. So when you look at how far-reaching the civil society sector is, and also their engagement, their direct engagement with citizens, it goes without saying that this is a sector that requires support of and by government and also international actors that are operating within the Nigerian geographic space.
We conducted nationwide consultations. We had about 3 or 4 different regions and then we have a national validation. Our main issue that was identified formed the result that we are trying to target: issue of capacity. There is weak capacity within the sector to do so. Only a very few civil society organizations are there up, and so at the bottom of the pyramid, where the work needs to happen at the community level, where change actually require, many civil society organizations at that level lack requisite capacity to do that. And then we now look around, okay, what are the other pertinent issues that are going on in the society? We conducted a round of political economy analysis across some of these states, and we identified that issues of regulation was a very vibrant one. Broader than just regulation is the shrinking space, and civil society is located within that center very strongly. Shrinking space, civic space, is broader than civil society organizations alone, but within that space, civil society organization occupies larger portion, because they stand, in gap for people. They are supposed to have a relationship with the community in which they are working with, and if their voices are, sort of clamped down, of course, it means that many Nigerians' voices will be affected.
There are 2 components on the program. Component 1, which is the one I'm managing, is about strengthening civil society capacity to enable them contribute better to development initiatives, because that's what civil society do anyways. So our role is to strengthen their operational systems. So I choose to call it institutional reform for civil society organizations. So we support the strengthening of their internal systems. That's the way they keep their records together, their accounting processes, their financial procedures, ensuring that their documents and financial information as transparent as possible, and then there are ensuring there are policies which they use in the organization to inform the working of the organization. Then we also support their program capacity, and that's very important, their capacity to deliver on the key aspects of work that they do. And they need programming skills to do this. They need knowledge of monitoring and evaluation. They need knowledge of knowledge management and communication. They also need an understanding of finance to manage grants. They need an understanding of fundraising and proposal writing to sustain their organization. They also need technical understanding of advocacy itself, how to draw advocacy messages and the likes. So those are the kind of things we help them look at in terms of their programming. And then we also support their external, what we call external relations. So networking is important for civil society organizations. So you cannot grow without a network. You cannot grow without knowing people within the sector, because it's all about identifying stakeholders to work with.
The second area is also to look at supporting civil society organizations to galvanize together, to come together and engage in constructive dialogue with other stakeholders in a way that will reform the regulatory landscape for civil society organizations.
There have been series of bills, to attempt to regulate civil society. Those bills were largely driven by the the legislators, and they were not that friendly, actually, or enabling to the civil society organizations. And that is why each time we had those bills, the civil society would mobilize and they would shut it down. And so it then became necessary to actually support a process where, rather than just a legislator coming up with a bill, maybe it's better for civil society to be involved and work with the legislators to come up with something, if at all a bill is needed anyway, and even review holistically what is already exists. Because there's this argument anyway, the civil society will tell you that they are already over-regulated. The government would say, no, they are not properly regulated or regulated enough. So, but with a program like this, the two sides are being brought together to dialogue, to actually objectively assess the situation. Civil society regulated enough or not regulated at all. So that is really what informed this this particular component. And of course, there is the other aspect of credibility. Okay, so because if you build a capacity of civil society, which is what our component 1 is doing, you build them, they can be as strong as a rock. But if they are not credible, it means they cannot, for example, advocate more effectively. If you cannot go and ask the government to be accountable when you yourself you are not.
It is laudable to get an institution like the European Union that is willing to invest in the capacity of civil society organization in Nigeria. It is critical that beneficiaries of the program understand the value of the opportunity. How? Have over 200 CSOs across 10 states leverage the ACT program opportunity.
EU ACT program has benefited the organization so immensely, in the sense that they build our capacity. They also strengthen the organization structures. For example, they help us to develop some policies, the gender policies. They help us to strengthen our communication policy. They helped us to carry out a lot of system strengthening, and that has helped us a lot, in the sense that, yes, though we are organizations that are doing great work with other funders, but they just added and contributed to making sure that we are greater.
before the EU Art program, NIDA was like struggling to come back because we had some challenges, a kind of transition challenge. So when the programs comes in, it came in timely in the sense that it really supported YEDA to review its policies. We had policies that were as old as 2006. And it also gave us an opportunity to develop a 5-year strategy for the organization, 2021 to 2025. It also gave us an opportunity to have annual operational plan and annual budget. And we use those tools to advocate and to access some funding, even though small, but we have accessed some additional funding.
The benefits of EU coming into Rivers State, and it's beyond imagination. Let's start with the issue about capacity. First of all, we're at the point of setting up as a network, bringing people together. So EU's input was timely. The presence of EU helped us in the network building because we had over 12 capacity building opportunities. Our leaders were trained, our members were trained, opportunities were spread, specific activities that needed specific skills received specific trainings. Like say our finance officers were trained, our project team were trained. In fact, we laid a proper foundation for how network building should be done through EU's intervention, because EU came in and made sure that the structures were put in place. How do you address ADR? How do you address issues about collaborations and partnership? How do you even write proposals? These are all the trainings that were done: financial management, project management, and then one key issue, gender mainstreaming, gender inclusive education, and all those things were part of it. So in essence, in summary, we had specific trainings for the partners and members of the organization and specific training for network building. It has not happened in a long time in this climate. It has not happened in a long time in the civic space in Rivers State, and it was a fantastic opportunity.
We were a young, fast-growing organization, and one of the things that I pay attention to is change. We're very open to change. When the arts program came to us, it came to us as an intervention for strengthening the organization in general. And of course, they saw a lot of gaps, which is expected for a budding organization. And of course, pointed out those gaps. The ones that comes to mind that is also impactful to us from the arts program is our board and policy. We had a board just like every other organization, but we were not strategic in terms of board engagement. There was very known gaps between the management and the board. We were not effectively engaging them. But after that interaction with the arts program, we not only did we start proper engagement of our board, but we expanded, we restructured the board. And in terms of policy, we onboarded our policy and unbundled it. It used to be one holistic policy, but we broke it down into 7 pillars. And I must tell you that when we sent that to many development partners, number one, the EU endorsed it as one of the best, the ambassador in particular. The British Council endorsed it as the best among the OPDs. Sightsavers endorsed it as the best among the OPDs. And DRF and several other organizations endorsed it.
They saw that we are at the grassroots level and we are community-based organization. So then they saw that we need to be trained more for our work to be more effective on the community. So then the ACT intervened. They organized a series of, should I call it training for us. In fact, the first of the trainees. In fact, it was amazing because they engaged us for about 4 months continuously. So they gave us 2 of their prolific trainers, Professor Shonubi and Mrs. Joyce. In fact, those 2 are superb. They trained us. At least Professor Shonubi trained us on organizational structure, and Mrs. Joyce on financial policies and financial management. So, and everything was superb. So they trained us to change some of our attitudes and some of the our methods in engaging with these people. In fact, through the training given to us, in fact, our engagement with AKDC changed. So we were able to engage them peacefully. So we made dialogue with them instead of violence.
Before the coming of ACT and before ACT's intervention, the CSOs are in a competitive settings. They are not helping each other. They don't work together because they feel threatened by others. But with the coming of with the coming of the ACT program, we're able to bring them together and make them understand that they are working for the general good of the civil society in the state. So it's a good thing that they work together. And this led to us having a kind of a peer-to-peer meeting where they come together. A CSO will say, these are my problems as I'm implementing program or as I'm trying to, for example, secure grant. I have this problem, and the other peers in that group will give him advice on how best to go about it. And this they have been doing it very well, and it has been helping them a lot.
Before now, we're not getting grants. We try and try all over and all over, but with some of the empowerment through trainings that they gave to us, project management, financial management, proposal writing, I think we have about 5 donors that are ready to work with us. And this is just the credibility that the EU Act is giving to the civil society space in Nigeria. And I think my organization has been a very big benefactor of this program in Nigeria.
The advent of British Council actually helped us to get structured in a way through capacity building programs. Mostly the key thing for me is the financial management training and the mentorship program. That was key. Like that was the icing on the cake, you understand? Because I have always dreamed of where hands on deck mentoring, like the person is in your office telling you this is how it's supposed to be done, this is the best practices to achieve. Our policies before were just written by me based on what I know. So a mentor came in, brought in a mentor, we reviewed all our policies, and I even found out that there were a lot of policies I needed to have that I didn't have based on what I do. Working with children, I needed a child protection policy. Working with, I needed an office harassment policy, financial policy, and all the rest. So that mentorship program actually helped us.
Specifically, they have helped us to have most of the regulatory documents we actually need as an organization, a lot of them. Our policies have been reviewed based on this EU. We thought we had something, good policies, operational policies, but the EU Act program has, yes, so we are looking at ourselves as a fully developed organization.
Although Budget is well known for its exploits when dealing with the federal, state budget, states and federal activities and projects, this is the first time that Budget is actually engaging the local governments, and that's that's the project we're implementing under the EU Act, which is engaging the local governors. local government. So it's quite a new experience for us. Although we work at the grassroots when it comes to constituency project implementation and all those things, but directly engaging local governments, this is the first time that we're actually going full blown into that aspect.
As soon as we started with the EU Act program, they started training us on things like financial management. I think that was the first training we attended. That was the first training officially we attended, financial management. Yes, I'm an accountant by training, but I still had to learn what's obtainable in the non-profit sector. So I learned it from the EU Act program. And after that, it moved us to start putting our financial house in order. One of the things we have done so far is, as soon as we finished with our financial management program, we had to audit our accounts for 2 years. So right now, we have an audited account. And because we have an audited account, we now have also amalgamated all our projects, which we made as a profile before. We now have them as an annual report.
For the first time, through the support of EU Act, we had the tax clearance certificate from Federal Inland Revenue Services for 2020 and 2021. So those, and we are able, in fact, we have paid our annual return to CAC even for the last year. That's for the December we have paid. So the compliance, the level of compliance as far as IEDA is concerned has greatly improved. And that is giving us a lot of opportunity to work with other potential partners.
Having been built with those capacities, they didn't end there. They continued by mentoring and coaching. The mentoring and coaching narrowed down that support to specific issues to empower you in practice, how to apply knowledge, moving from research to policy, policy to action, practice, all those kind of things. So you were opportune to practicalize what you have learned with specific support from the coaching and mentoring process. And that helped us strategically improve our financials, because one of the coaching was on financial management. From that coaching and mentoring alone, we got 6 other grants, both as a mentoring organization for Center for Development Support Initiatives and also as Ringos, being the benefiting organization. It is incredible and unprecedented. And we hope that, yes, there may be yeses and nos, but we're going to build on that opportunity. And then because of the proposal skills that we learned, and we're able to write our proposal on the Climate Action for Sustainability and Environmental Protection project, and that project is being funded now by the EU. So we are actually playing out, on the vision to action.
There's a bar that has been raised in terms of the legal operating environment, in terms of the expected best practices in financial matters. And this has helped us, even though we understood and we practiced them, but they have raised the bar beyond what we thought was the ideal. They have shown us that we are not yet there, even though we would be faring, doing well. But there's a standard that is global best practice, and that we are abiding with, and we have started implementing. So this is key, and this is instructive for us, which means, and which we have demonstrated, that it means that IPC can bid competitively for any project in the world. And we have been able to demonstrate some level of this, even having to bid for a training workshop in the Gambia for the Gambia elections. We are Lagos based, but because our standard was as it should be, UNESCO, I don't know if I could mention their name, approached us, and we could, that due diligence enabled us to go to the Gambia to conduct training for their journalists. We are having funding or partnership with IFEX, with the EU, with OSF, and some other international funders.
Well, I like the checks and balances that goes with it. You're always on, you know that there's somebody watching out there, it doesn't, so you need to get it right. And I like the capacity building, constantly building your capacity, so that these are things that even after the cycle of this project, you would have gained the value that EU Act brings to the table. So yes, that for us is a huge value that has that has been brought on to the implementation of the project.
The impact has been massive in terms of gender issues, gender inclusion. The Center for Citizens with Disabilities now have a focal officer that integrates these issues, and we mainstream it into activities. Over the years before we met with EU Act, I must say this was not considered. But after the training, we saw the need for this to be mainstreamed in our activities and programs. I would say the EU Act training has been very effective. I said one, the fundraising issue was very massive because one, we got a grant from DRF after the training.
I'm happy because EU Act is the only organization that ever identified youth-led organization through HCOMD and engaged them to create awareness, particularly on gender-based violence and COVID-19 in Sokoto State. In the course of the training, we adopted some of these templates. I would say this also aided us in our voice project, which was we just got the grant not quite long ago. So the template is quite expansive, and it's very broad, and it covers a wide range of things, capturing both how you could document outcomes, how you could carry out project implementation plan in line with strategy, and also actualize your goals and objectives. So I must say it was impactful training. Also, in the area of right-based approach towards advocacy and engagement, I would commend EU Act for this because we've, over the time, conducted several research, as far as even having a research officer. Yes, I would commend EU Act for that. Because of that right-based approach towards advocacy, CCD now have a research officer. And from there, we generate evidence, and from that evidence, we use it to engage. So I would commend the EU Act for that. HCOMD for the first time wrote a justification on why we should work with social media and youth-led organizations to create awareness, to change the narrative, to have a Sokoto free of gender-based violence and reduce the spread of COVID-19. And luckily enough, they accepted the justification, give us the opportunity, and we engage youth-led and social media organizations in Sokoto State, and they are doing very well.
When you have somebody right from the startup to say, okay, fine, there's no problem, we are there for you. We are going to provide a shoulder that you're going to lean on in terms of training your personnel. So we do as much as possible to make sure that we train them so that you have the required knowledge, that you can start with in terms of implementation. So in terms of training, we can't throw it away. Something that we really appreciate. So in terms of strengthening our system too, accounting system, helping us to formulate, policy, and most especially, I think we should be grateful to ACT, EU ACT British Council, in the sense that they were able to sit down together with us and come up with a strategic plan, which is a roadmap, a 4-year strategic plan. It doesn't come cheap. So we don't have the money to invest on this, as an emerging organization, but we have an organization that says, okay, what are you people lacking? So, and we told them, we appreciate if you can help us, come up with our strategic plan, and they did it. At the end of the day, they assigned us a mentor, and we were able to come up with a 4-year strategic plan, which we are currently implementing, which serves as a roadmap to what we are doing. We have our resource center, which is Irete Resource Center, which was established by the EU and ROLAC. Establishing it is not just enough, but making sure that that center is very visible
and making sure that other people around the communities where we are using the center was contributed by EU Act. For example, when that center was established, we got a lot of support from other funders like Action Aids. You know, they did a lot, some other individuals. But after that, what happened? EU Act came and helped us to expand to other local governments, like Ojo local government and Oshodi Solo, which is very close to where you have the center. And since that intervention, wow, the center receives not less than 5 to 10 cases every day. And it's like you just spark up a fire, you know, in those communities. A lot of people are reporting. And beyond that, they also started a very innovative program, which is building the capacity of other NGOs around the center to be able to respond to issues of SGBV. And I think that's unique in the sense that it is not just us that will do the work alone. We believe that other NGOs, especially even when they are small, they are still growing. We need to build their capacity to be able to respond. And that has worked, okay? For example, in the center, even though the center has been there for a year plus, by September will be 2 years, we have reached more than 500 cases, you know. And so those resources that we got from EU is helping those NGOs around us to be able to respond. And that's very unique, that's very innovative.
The seed funding, which is the height, you know, of the height of the help they have done, you know, for us, you know, really, you know, put us in a very good feasibility in terms of what we are doing. Though it's small, but we are able to make it effectively. And this, you know, has enabled people to know what CESDA, you know, is doing more in terms of our audience, in terms of our targeted audience, and the public generally. We have more stakeholders to relate with, and not just relating with them, but we have a very good rapport, very good relationship with them. A good example is Abuja Environmental Protection Agency, who happen to be a critical stakeholder in this particular project that we've just, you know, implemented. Same with Federal Ministry of Health, same with the Market Men and Women Association. So we enjoy that goodwill, and that has really put our organization in a place where people can really see what we are doing. And quite a number of people are coming to identify with us simply because of this project.
We also attended proposal writing training, where we step it down to some of our staff, and the staffs were engaged. Initially, it used to be the ED and the board of directors that worked on proposal, but after the training, the staffs were trained, we step it down, and when they released expression of interest, the staff were asked to work on the proposal, which EU Act was one of it, and the other one was in Yobe State, and we all got the project. One is still in the pipeline.
Yes, really, in my own, me alone particularly, I attend EU some seminars in this town up to Abuja. They have changed my attitude entirely to know how to handle such person. Do you get me? Then coming to my community, really, our people, they don't know all this. It was through the orientation we have from you, we extend to them. In fact, I cannot calculate it. It's okay. It's more than what everybody expected, because all life is fun, and the EU has given fun and training. So we expect more support from them.
The learning that we learn from the coachings of the EU Act that will engage us is the most important aspect that we benefit with, because we understand how to put things in place in terms of what I have already mentioned earlier, that our system is not in place. But now our system of implementing program, we put it in place with the support of EU Act.
Over the course of 3 years of implementation, the program has recorded some very interesting results. I make bold to say that in most cases, we have even achieved the results we are supposed to achieve for the 4th year of the program. In other words, we have already achieved year 4 milestones already. Beyond the development of these capacity development plans, we also facilitated a process where these same CSOs that we supported them to develop action plans, a set of specific action of things that they will do institutionally during the course of our engagement with them. As I talk to you, we have also been able to achieve that. All the 200 CSOs that we are supporting or that we have a relationship with, they have also developed their action plan, which they have been implementing since the time that we engaged with them since 2019. So these are interesting results. We have been able to achieve even milestones for year 4 before we even start the year 4.
Something else that is not often talked about, I mentioned the gender and social inclusion. You make laws, but you don't look at how the gender and socially inclusive these laws are. And so we got a team to actually, I believe for the first time, actually focusedly carry out evidence research, okay, to see how gender and socially inclusive regulatory frameworks are. And so again, the report for that is going to be available. From the findings of that report, a strategy has been developed to mainstream gender and social inclusion across the regulatory frameworks. And that research highlighted a few things. For example, you would not ordinarily think that access to the laws can be an issue. Citizens are expected to be aware of the law, follow the law, because ignorance is no excuse in law, but yet the laws are not accessible. And then we generally also work with regulators on specific things like Corporate Affairs Commission. We are supporting them to put in place something that is going to benefit not even CSOs alone, but all the customers of CAC, that would enable them to move away from manual filing of their financial accounts, but to filing that electronically. And so we've engaged a consultant to support CAC to put in place that software. And we're also working with them, for example, in collaboration with our consultant to actually train CSOs on the 4 major regulatory frameworks: Companies and Allied Matters Act, pension law, tax laws, and the anti-money laundering law. And then we actually have the representative from each of these regulators in the room, the training hall with the consultants. At least in all the 10 states piloting this, the CSOs have engaged the MDAs and they've been able to review the issues around the multiple registration. And they are now, some of the states are actually moving ahead to come up with something like a one-stop shop. It may involve coming up with a state-level bill to maybe get just one agency to do the registration. And so that is in a way a sort of achievement for now. But I said that activity started not long ago.
Innovative programs of this magnitude come with their challenges. How have the implementing partners found a way to overcome these challenges and still achieve the program's goal?
Civil society sector is still evolving. No matter the number, it's still evolving. And the processes that led to where we are today have been led by donor funds. And so there is that huge sense of entitlement within civil society organizations. On learning that mindset is affecting, well, not that it's affecting, it's there. So we have to work around it, on learning the mindset. I mean, we are doing capacity development. That is an institutional focus. If I were a CSO, that I would prioritize that, because if I have the structure in place, it means I know how to fish. I cannot go and be begging for somebody else to give me fish. But rather, what you see with many civil society organizations is just give me the fish. Don't care about giving me the structure to know how to fish, and that is an issue.
There are challenges working with CSOs. One of the main challenges is the issue of high, staff attrition. You've trained staff of these civil society organizations. They've been trained in different capacity areas, but when the time comes, they move on to better opportunities, and that still leaves a gap within the CSO that has been trained. So that's a challenge. It's high staff turnover, staff moving from one organization to the other. But I mean, this is not a challenge. The ACT program recognized this challenge from the very beginning, and that informed our approach to capacity strengthening. We made sure that civil society organizations that we're working with, took ownership of the process.
Most of the time, when you are expecting representation, kind of representation that is sent at times by some of the big boys, you just want to just send one program officer. In fact, that affected some of them, because by the time we are given now the first grant, there was a condition that you must have attended a minimum number of our trainings at that time. But some of them that did not take it seriously before then could not even apply because they did not know what was coming. So that is probably the major challenge.
I think the only thing is during this implementation, the kidnapping issue and the political issue, because we are now at the era of transition of democracy. So, and most of our partners are working on democracy policy inclusively, whereby gender needs to be considered.
Any challenge, we've been able to resolve them in terms of, engaging with stakeholders, either internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. So, as they come up, we resolve them. There is none that we've not been able to, resolve actually.
Sustainability is key element of any developmental project. What will happen when funding partner close out or the founding cycle ends? It is impressive to see that CSO partners have factored this into their project planning and execution.
There is a sustainability mechanism already built in at different levels. First, within the program that we implement, we have what we call peer-to-peer learning. The first thing that we are putting in place is this peer-to-peer learning. So whereby we provide opportunity for the emerging to learn, to continue to learn from the matured or the developing. Among the 20, they form themselves into group, maybe 3 or 4 groups. We have them, and each group comprised of these categories.
For the peer learning session, it's a self-sustaining stream of work under the EU Act program. Why I say the self-sustaining is because we initiated it, but the CSOs that form every group, peer learning group, are the ones that facilitate and run the peer learning group.
We are also investing in what is called capacity development providers. So we identified that one of the problems why the capacity gap issue continues to fester in the civil society is that there are not sufficient organizations or agencies that provide tailor-made capacity building support to CSOs.
So eventually we picked 11 across the 6 geopolitical regions. So which means we have 1 in every geopolitical region. And the reason we did that is so that it's accessible to CSOs from anywhere. CSOs can link with any one of these institutions to work with. We have Mumbai House in Kano. It's an affiliate of the Bayero University. We have the American University of Nigeria in Adamawa. We have iCentra in Abuja. We have Clones House, which is an M&E firm in Abuja. We have the Center for Management and Development, that's government-owned, CMD, in Lagos and in Abuja. And they offer a wide range of courses, particularly the CMD. Then we have TEP Center, we have CITAD, IT based in Kano as well. We have Wakol in Enugu. We have Tom's Associates that is well known for many years, providing trainings and support to so many organizations. So we have quite a number of them that people are familiar with and some that are new.
Before now, iCentral has been providing all our services to government organized, public sector, private sector, and non-governmental organizations. However, with our partnership and relationship with British Council on the ACT program, specifically, it has amplified our capacity to deliver to the clients and also open us up more to the development sector. All the CSOs that we never thought existed in Kano, in Sokoto, in Enugu. It's been very, very awesome. So it has further strengthened what we do and also added capacity, increased capacity to the team on ground, providing those supports to the CSOs and the non-governmental organizations.
Partnering with ACT, with the ACT program, gave us that feasibility in the civil society space for them to know that, oh, this is Clones House that delivers capacity in the area of monitoring and evaluation. They are your go-to organization if you need to strengthen your capacity around monitoring and evaluation.
For me, the ACT program only sharpen our skills. Sharpen our skills in the sense that a lot of training, a lot of interactions has happened. Where we're now like, okay, we have this, but we've not been utilizing it this way. Instead, we've been utilizing it for public sector, private sector. Then we can actually redirect our thinking now on how best we can support these CSOs and NGOs. So the interaction we've been having with ACT program and all the activities that have happened so far has actually helped us that. In fact, I think the best CMD has achieved so far is even the e-learning module development that they were able to help us develop.
We're now, redesigning our, curriculums to suit the CSOs and further deliver value. So then before now, we used to just do basic project management, M&E for them, but we never knew that these guys would be interested in strategy before British Acts program. We never knew that we could provide financial training, financial management training for them. And we're also looking at developing a lot of other modules, project management for development sector, business innovation and strategy, essential business skills. Before, whatever you look at it, whether you are in the public sector or private sector or non-governmental organizations, your organization is designed to create value.
Another thing we did was to then bring these CDPs together to form a partnership so they can leverage on each other, because I said they are in different places. So the leveraging would support that. If there are lots of people from the northwest, for example, who would like to acquire training, a CDP can move to that place rather than having the CSOs come. It's cheaper for the CDP to move there, and then they can use facilities from their partner CDP that is based in that region. So we created that type of partnership as well.
If people ask, like, okay, who are the other entities that does the same kind of capacity building for civil society or capacity strengthening for civil society organizations in Nigeria? We couldn't quickly pick those names like, oh, okay, this organization does X, Y, Z. So I think the support from the ACT program made us also to understand those other partners, those people as capacity development partners now that we can also work with, we can exchange ideas with on delivering capacity. So I think that is another support that one really appreciates.
5 out of the 11 CDPs were also supported to develop e-learning courses. So we have 5 e-learning courses that will be launched in the next few months. We have on financial management, proposal writing, social research and analysis, gender and social inclusion, right-based approach to advocacy. So all of this would be launched online. It's for a fee, but it's a minimal amount, or something that CSOs can afford, and then it makes it accessible for CSO from wherever, because the courses are designed in such a way that even CSOs that are in hard to areas with low bandwidth can access it, because there would be the application that they can have on their Android phones or their Apple device, so which they can easily, once they download that application, they can easily take the courses.
So what we're doing is, once we retake some of these courses, we also record them such that we have them as self-paced courses, and we're able to also put them on the LMS that ACT has provided for us, so that when CSOs go to that platform, they are able to have access to more materials than they already do.
Then the second thing we designed is to provide a resource web platform. That's the Civic Action Sustainable Society website, where most of our resource materials will be placed. So we had trainings in 17 different areas, and resource materials were developed. Toolkits were developed on the various training areas. Training manuals were developed, which any organization can pick and use in the organization, to step down these trainings, or to, if they want to retrain their staff on these areas, they can always go to the website and pick. It's free. We're placing all the resource materials there. And then our CSOs can have, even beyond our 200 CSOs, NGOs, CSO community in Nigeria can have access to those documents. And those are the ways that we seek to ensure that this program continues, the capacity building continues after ACT.
CMD is already thinking that in the next 3 to 5 years, we should be able to strengthen the capacity of 50 to 60 CSOs in the country, if not more. But we don't want to overblow our targets, and at the end of the day, we cannot achieve that. But we are looking at 50, 60 comfortably, 3 to 5 years. We are going to do more on a yearly basis, but we are starting with 50.
What we envisaged was like, yes, in the next 5 years, at least, we want to have provided support for at least 8 organizations within the next 5 years. So now, when we say 8, it means like these 8 would have been working with them, like doing that transfer of knowledge with them, providing all-round support on monitoring and evaluation for them. So which starts with you having an M&E officer, then getting that M&E officer comfortable. So we thought like, okay, we should have about 8 of the civil society organization, could be more than that. And also that, from those 8, we have it as a plan that, yes, they too can go ahead and train some more civil society organizations within that space, because the story might be like, oh, okay, how did you guys get here, right? So can you also advise us? And I think that is a multiplier effect.
Right now, we are targeting around 100 to 300, both for physical coaching and mentoring, and also virtual, right? So one of the ways, of course, to meet them, like I said, is through the learning management system. Some of them are definitely going to be free. Some of them are going to be highly subsidized, for the CSO, because the goal is that we are able to strengthen the capacity of the CSOs so that they can be able to achieve the mandate in terms of sustainable development in Nigeria. So we are targeting 100 to 300 from now to the next 5 years. And as we implement, we will see if we can be able to expand more on that, and is to be able to meet with them, virtual coaching, those that are within our terrain, physical coaching, and mentoring, and just seeing how we can be able to help them build their capacity so that they are able to be the drivers for the change that we want.
As a program, we are aware that we're only going to be here for a short while, and so we work with institutions that are actually going to be around much longer. Like I mentioned, regulators, for example, on the government side. We look out for civil society organizations that are good and going to be around to champion, like the self-regulation I mentioned, the networks. We've gotten them to form themselves into a general assembly, and then they have a National Technical Committee on Civil Society Self-Regulation. So, and they formalize, they have their terms of reference, the structures that would drive this beyond acts. We are also looking at, like, in terms of legislative engagement, reactivating the Civil Society Liaison Office at the National Assembly. If that is there beyond us, it will still continue. We work with some of the international NGOs like OSIWA, MacArthur Foundation, etc. We even collaborate with other donors program like USAID Civil Society program called, you said, SCALE. A key sustainability measure for us would be that at the end of the day, even beyond us as a program, civil society and the legislators and the regulators are still able to have access to one another and talk and continue to dialogue.
It still falls back to the financial sustainability strategy. So from the training, we've been able to amass a lot. The aspect of resource mobilization, not necessarily banking on grants and not necessarily banking on donations. So we have some things in place already. Like I said, we're still working on it. The social enterprise part of the whole thing, how we can generate funds within the organization to sustain the activities or the admin activities or the project activities that we need to carry out. So we're actually working on a lot of strategies already. So I'm sure that in no time, those things will be set rolling and fundings might not really be that much of a challenge for us anymore.
Overall, what is more important to us is the capacity that we have gained through this project, because the capacity will make it easier for us to be able to do what we are doing in according to international best practices. The capacity will make it easier for us to even be able to access grants from other organizations. And then the capacity also has widened our horizon. It has also taught us more on the need for sustainability. And even from this project, we have seen that based on that capacity, we have established what we call ambassadors in each of those local government areas, 5 individuals, 3 males, 2 females, who have already drafted action plan and they have started implementing it. And I must mention that they have the blessing of everybody in the community. They have the blessing of the traditional institutions. They have the blessings of the religious scholars. They also have the blessing of the security agencies, because we made sure we carried the security agencies along, the security concerns in the country.
Here, one of our principles is that we don't do anything that is not sustainable. For us, the development partner who comes to us, we see it as that partner investing in our vision. And we are grateful for that. So what we do is that we strategically work with partners that can buy into what we are doing. That if we're not there, it will continue seamlessly, And we partner with some government arms, some public organization, and even private entities, We try as much as possible to get them to buy into what we are doing and also show them the future of what we are doing. Again, part of our sustainability plan is to have someone who can follow through even after the project has ended.
sustainability is the key. And during the project conception, we outlined how we are going to sustain the project results, beyond the EU Act, because no grant is eternal. So we built in our own design some sustainability parameters. Of course, what we are doing on the EU Act is also rubbing on, or the gains of the EU Act is also rubbing on other projects we are doing.
Okay, currently we have some structures that we are trying to set aside in the community. We've actually started. So the aim is that at the end of the program, they can be able to sustain whatever we've trained them to do. As we have the CCP, that's the Child Protection Committee. They deal with issues of gender-based violence. We have the paralegal structures. Those ones also deal with gender-based cases regarding all kinds of violence. And then we have the community volunteers. They are working in the aspect of health. So the community volunteers are supposed to go into the community and do a HTS, that's the HIV testing services. Once they get new cases of HIV, they refer them to the hospital and they make sure they get the best counseling ever. So we have all the structures in ground so that when this project is over, they can continue with whatever we have left behind.
I just hope there will be EU Act 2. Yes, because our beneficiaries are clamoring that we should continue with this intervention. But the big question is that if EU Act is not there, we're able to put some mitigating factors in place. Like if you see me, I'm wearing this cap now. It's showing a peace advocate. We just inaugurated about 150 community peace advocates in all these communities. That even if EU Act is not there, we will be at the background. We'll give them the support needed. We might not be able to do it as much as we could do it now because of the financial support we are getting from the EU Act. But we, in our own side, we will try by all means to carry on with the work with these community volunteers who have volunteered to work in their community free. And I believe with this, we'll be able to sustain the projects in these various communities. And also, we are looking at other development partners that we could partner with. Today, we'll be having a meeting with some of them, and tomorrow, and so on and so on. So, the gain of this EU intervention on my organization is enormous that I can't begin to enumerate one by one. But by and large, these 150 community peace advocates will go into the community to cascade the messages that they have received because we have trained them.
Sustainable. If you're talking of building capacity within the rank and file of the officers in the organization, it's sustainable. Even if they leave ISMPH, it's something that they have gained, and they would, it becomes like a working pattern for you. And so for us, we in ISMPH, we actually have for each of the times that we met, especially at capacity building workshop, we always highlight those things that we had either ignored or we are not well versed in it. So even if we bring new people on, all we need to do is read that file. You know, the values that we have gained from EU Act would help to actually serve as a doctrine for ISMPH going forward.
What I can say is that ART has put in place some mechanism for sustainability. Whether there is ACT or no ACT, I believe the CSO can build on that. Example, the peer learning session. We have a peer learning where they will learn from one another. And the peer learning has kickstart. We had about 4 sessions. Now the sessions we are going to have at the end of this month, the CES agreed to facilitate the process. The initial process, the first and the second to the third, ACT is the one that facilitated the process, and now they have agreed to facilitate it. This is the beginning of the sustainability. And also the CDPs. The CDPs, that is Capacity Development Partners, that ACT has engaged. Whether ACT is here or ACT is not there, the idea to build the capacity of the CSO. So I believe these two main areas, I think, is the best mechanism put in place by ACT for sustainability, whether ACT is here or not, because the CS can continue with their work without ACT.
Well, whether or not there is an EU ACT program too, I can say very clearly that the European Union would continue to support the civil society sector. In fact, we do have a CSO roadmap for 2021 to 2027. So whether or not it's called EU Act 2 or whether or not it's given another name, there is the certainty that the European Union would continue to support strengthening of the civil society sector.
One of the things that we have been doing, we are quite very resourceful, and we hope that that is adding value to the work. We don't bring solution. We don't have templates to say this is your issue, this is your answer. We are enabling the CSOs, enabling them to look at the issues, come up with the idea, and supplying them with technical support to work it through. And that is why ownership of our process is a lot better, stronger, and impactful.
For us in NEDIN, I think the best thing that we have ever enjoyed since we entered into development work is the coming of ACT. In the sense that ACT came with a mentality that was not there before. Coaching mentality, mentoring mentality, capacity building mentality. Their coming have transformed us. And not only that, during the call for proposal, we are part of the people that apply for the grant. And at the end of the day, we are fortunate to get the grant, which currently we are implementing. That's what we are doing here today. So, and in our years of existence, it has been very difficult for our organization as individual organization to get grants, except we come together as a group. But today, we are having a grant directly given to us as an organization, which we are currently managing. And this is a welcome development for us.
EU Act has made us to move from debate to action. It was no more about table desktop operations. It's now into the field and getting more impact and getting more people's life transformed and talking with policymakers, moving with policymakers are looking for ringers now, thanks to EU, because we have what it takes to promote accountability, transparency, partnership, and collaboration, and we have the information that they need. And we were able to prove to Rivers Indigenes and to the world that no matter how dry a relationship or situation is in any location, collaboration does it better for everybody. And EU Act brought out that strength in us, and today we're celebrating the victories as an outcome.
3 words to describe the ACT program is: number 1, strategic,
strengthening,
sustainable,
empowering,
timely,
effective.
It's amazing,
strengthening,
Value for money.
Credible,
resourceful, massive,
enabling,
Impactful.
fantastic,
Value added,
Efficient.
innovative,
value needed,
engaging,
Excellence.
Exciting,
enlightening,
people-driven,
Successful.
very, very impactful.
The Agents for Citizen-Driven Transformation Act program has proven to be an effective intervention in the civic space in Nigeria. It is now left to benefiting organizations to sustain the gain of the program.